$400 is a lot to pay, but you've paid that for the X Mark 6. You're trying to get the most out of it. Well, in this video, we're not going to give you 1, not 5, not 10, but 11 tips and tricks and best settings to get the most out of your XM6. And along the way, I'm going to share with you some findings on how this headphone works and how some things don't really work that well. Let's get started. Alright, one of the coolest developments for the X Mark 6 is that it folds into this nice compact package. But what I find is when you unfold them, this little hinge pinches the hell out of my finger. I found that out the hard way. It's probably best to take it out with the headband like this and unfold it with one hand. You think this is a small thing, but once your hand gets pinched a few times, you'll thank me later. Now, it also comes with this really nice case, but it feels like a jigsaw puzzle every time I have to put it back in here when I'm leaving. So, Sony has gone ahead and labeled the two indentations left and right. And what I like to do is align the left ear cup to the correct indentation and then slide and fold the headphone into place. This works surprisingly well, is consistent and reduces a lot of frustration and friction when I need to quickly pack it up and travel. Be honest with me, how many times have you put on a headphone only to realize, oh crap, it's the other way around? Well, what Sony's done for this is put a little raised dot at the back of the left ear cup. And you might ask, why not just put a big L or R in the ear cup like Bose and Sennheiser does? And to that I answer, yeah, I don't know why they don't do that. But there is an advantage to this method. One is, if you're feeling for it in the dark, this is probably going to help you more than any visual aid. And also for people with visual impairment, this little dot is really good and I find it to be genuinely helpful. Now, the way Sony gets you to control your X Mark 6 headphones is via the Sound Connect app. And to put it bluntly, burn it down. It is a flaming mess. Just burn it down and start over, Sony. That's the best thing to do. They've put a little home screen on, which is what you're first greeted with, but that home screen is just a farce. If you go to device settings, you get to see the actual app, which has 6 tabs. Audio review channel called DHRME that actually talked about this, and they said it's like having a messy house and thinking closing the front door is going to solve it, which is the most apt way to describe the Sound Connect app. So here's how we're going to tackle this issue. We're going to break it down into 3 sections. One is just some general features that I think are useful to know and I have best settings for them. Then we'll talk about noise handling, how to switch to ANC and transparency and the best settings for that. And finally, we'll talk about sound quality and low energy audio, which is a big deal, or they say it is a big deal. Wait, you'll see. First thing is, you go to the home page, you go down to device settings and you jump into the actual app. At the bottom of the first sound tab, you'll see DSE Extreme and Bluetooth connection quality. Set this to prioritize Bluetooth sound quality rather than connection quality. And the reason is, on these headphones and all new headphones, connection quality is simply not an issue anymore. Sound quality is probably what you can afford to prioritize, and that way you get the highest bitrate of LDAC or low energy audio that your phone or your device can afford. That is probably the one you want. Now, you also have spatial sound and head tracking, and to be honest, I find this to be a bit of a gimmick, and if you just never use it, I suspect you will never feel the loss of it. Now, on the next page, the Systems tab, you have connected 2 devices simultaneously, which is great. You want to enable that. You also have the touch sensor control panel. This is very interesting. If you get caught out in the rain and if you're wearing a hoodie, remember the right ear cup is a massive touch sensitive area, and your hoodie, if it's wet, will, activate it by mistake and pause your music or play some music when you don't want it. So in that situation, you can come here and disable that touch sensor entirely. That's going to be useful in those situations where you get caught out in the rain. Next up, you have head gestures. I would turn this on because this is really cool. You can basically nod to accept a call and shake your head to reject a call. It's a nice little hands-free thing. Then we get down to what I think is really important. Enable your headphones microphone operation. Okay, this makes it so when you're on a call, a Zoom call, any kind of call really, you can double tap your noise cancelling button, and in doing so, basically mute your microphone at the hardware level, which means you don't have to go fishing in the app on how you want to mute your microphone. This is super useful. I love it. I think you're going to like it too. Next up, you have automatic power off. This is something that you want to enable so that it conserves power when it's not on your head. You can leave this function off, but then you'll just lose a lot of battery because it doesn't go into standby mode otherwise. There are some headphones that go into standby mode automatically, and the Bose Quiet Comfort Ultra is an example of something that just you put it on and you start going. but that also doesn't have great battery life, so maybe there's something to it. And those are the main settings that you should consider. There are a number of other settings, but to be honest, they just don't matter as much, not as much as the next thing that we're going to talk about, which is noise cancelling and transparency mode. Now, noise cancelling in the sound tab is just on and off. There's no levels of noise cancelling here, but ambient sound mode, that does have levels. It actually goes from 1 to 20, and in my opinion, you should set it somewhere between 13 and 16 because this sounds the most natural and almost as if you don't have headphones on. That's my recommended setting. You have auto ambient sound and you have voice pass-through, but if I'm being honest, don't bother. Just if you've got ambient sound at 13 or 14, it's just really good this time. They've improved it seriously from their previous iterations, and I for one think it's really good. Next up, you have speak to chat. Okay, now there's a few different ways you can go into transparency mode to have a conversation with someone. One is speak to chat, where you speak, it senses it, it goes into transparency mode, allows you to have the conversation. When you stop speaking, goes back to your previous mode, whatever that mode might be. One thing to note, if you've set an ambient sound of 13, speak to chat does not go to your default ambient sound. It'll always go to ambient sound 20 with vocal pass-through. It's just the default setting and you can't change that. What you can change, however, is to change the sensitivity to low. Speak to chat tends to be very sensitive. If you hum to yourself while you're listening to music, it sort of activates, and I find that very annoying. Low sensitivity does make it much more bearable in my opinion. You can also change the time duration that it waits to go back to the previous mode after you stop talking to 5 seconds from the default 15 seconds, and I find that to be, that's still a lot of time you wait, but it's not 15 odd seconds, which is a long time to wait before you drown out the sound of the world around you, which, let's face it, is why you're buying these headphones in the first place. Now, another way to use these headphones to have a conversation with someone is just put your right hand on your right ear cup and automatically goes into full ambient sound mode 20 with vocal pass through, all of that. You can have a conversation, and when you're done, just let go and it goes back to your noise cancelling. This works really well as well, but if I'm being honest, just person to person, can I just say, just take your headphones off. From a social point of view, I found this to be a really easy way to do it and a much more sociable way to not come across as a jackass. Also, because these headphones fold, you can just do this. This actually works really well. You still got this going, but you've got this here. It actually works really well. I think both of these are better than using all these fancy features, and you come across as more approachable if that is what you want. Now, putting that aside, let's talk about sound quality. But before that, I want to address the elephant in the room, and the elephant is LE audio. The XM 6 is a little bit future-proofed. It has LDAC, it has AAC, but it also supports LE audio with the LC3 codec. And the claim is that LE audio does three things. One, improves sound quality over classic Bluetooth, improve battery life over classic Bluetooth, and lower latency. And here's the thing, here's what people don't tell you, that is only compared to the SBC codec, not the aptX codecs, not the LDAC codecs out there. In my testing, battery life was exactly the same using LDAC or using LE audio with noise cancelling on, with volume at 50%, you get the same between 40 and 50 hours of battery life, so there is no point switching it out. Also, in my opinion, the audiophile that I am, I couldn't tell a difference between sound quality between LDAC and LE audio, so it honestly doesn't matter which one you have. And finally, latency. Okay, this is a place that it does improve, and latency is useful when you're doing some kind of multiplayer gaming. So if that is your use case, then you might want to switch to low energy audio. Here's the catch. It's very cumbersome to do so the first time around. So the first time you have to go in and say prioritize low energy audio in the systems menu. Then it'll disconnect your Bluetooth headphone. You've then got to forget your Bluetooth headphone from your Bluetooth menu, repair it under the LE name. It'll show up automatically. It should, it does. And then you've got LE audio activated. And once you do, you've got some Spotify integrations available to you that I'm not even going to get into because it just doesn't matter. But after you do this one time in the future on Android devices, in your Bluetooth settings, the little settings cog next to the WH1000 XM6, you can switch it from LE audio and LDAC seamlessly. So the first time is cumbersome, after that is pretty easy, but quite honestly, it makes almost no difference to your usage, your battery life, your sound quality, so why bother? I'm saying this so that you don't go out rushing to get a new phone or some kind of equipment to make use of this, unless you specifically want slightly lower latency or you specifically want support for AuraCast. Now, having said that, Sound quality, how do you get the most out of it? Well, there's two different ways, right? You've got the default sound, which is nicer than the XM5, but still, you might want to improve that. They've given you two ways to do it. One of them is to find your own equalizer. And what this does is it makes you play a song, any kind of song from any service, doesn't matter. And whatever you're playing in the background, it applies some EQ automatically. It actually gives you 6 or 7 different types of EQ. You listen to each one. Some will be bass boosted, some will be treble boosted, and so on. And you click on which one you like, say next, and you do this a few times, and it puts together a sound signature that should be good for you. One tip, one really crucial tip, do not use techno or hip hop or pop, because these music genres don't have very much going on in terms of information across the frequency range. If you do use them, and if you ever listen to rock after that, you might find that your EQ setting, it just sounds weird and wonky and just doesn't do justice. What you want to do is use rock, heavy metal, heavy orchestral piece, anything that has a lot of instruments and vocals and a lot of things going on in the widest frequency range possible, so that your EQ setting just works for all the frequencies. Then, whether you're listening to hip hop, pop, rock, heavy metal, doesn't matter. That will work a whole lot better, I promise you. So your music selection really makes a difference when you're doing this test. Now, you also get a 10-band EQ, and this is super useful, but it can also get a little intimidating. So here's the breakdown. The first 4 sliders to the left of your EQ tab are bass. So your 30, 60, 125 and 250 sliders, those are your bass. If you want more bass, generally just move the first 3 sliders up by a notch or 2 notch evenly, all of them at once, and you'll get more bass. And the same thing, you get less bass if it goes down. 250 Hz. If you add it, it adds warmth, but it also adds muddiness. So in my opinion, don't change this too much. Now, if you want better vocal clarity or vocal emphasis, 1 and 2 kilohertz is where you want to go. You want to bump it up by a notch. 4 kilohertz also helps, but in my experience, 4 kilohertz, if you overdo it or underdo it, it really breaks the sound in certain genres of music. So I wouldn't mess with it. 1 and 2 kilohertz up by 1 notch helps. And if you want to go one step further, drop the 500 hertz down by 1 notch. That'll further just emphasize vocals a bit more. And finally, 8 and 16 kilohertz are your treble frequencies. Now, here is a EQ setting that I like to use that you might also like. It basically keeps the Sony default setting, adds a little bit of vocal emphasis, and de-emphasizes the 4 kilohertz and the treble just a little bit. I think this is pretty good, but here's another little tip for you. If you switch between off, which is your default sound setting, and custom, which is the setting that I just gave you, you're going to hear a difference, and you're going to always think that the default sound setting is better, it's richer, it's nicer. It's a trick, don't fall for it. Basically, when you switch from off to custom or any of the EQ settings, this X Mark 6 actually becomes quieter by 3 decibels, and in your brain, this sounds less clear and more muddy. If you increase the volume by a notch or 2, it'll suddenly not sound like that anymore. So this is just a perceptual thing. Don't fall for it. If you want to compare the two, you've got to change the volume so they're volume matched as well. Now, finally, if you want to conserve a little battery, you could use the 3.5mm jack. But here's the thing, always have noise cancelling on when you do it. If you have it off, then the DSP, the digital signal processing, is not doing its thing, which means you're getting a sound signature that has no vocal emphasis whatsoever, and it sounds really weird. So if you use the 3.5mm jack, make sure you turn on ANC and you get the default sound or your custom sound of the X Mark 6. So there you have it, a whole bunch of tips and tricks and interesting findings about the X Mark 6. I think we might have gone over 11 there, but hey, that's just more value to you. If you found this helpful, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and tell me what you want me to compare the X Mark 6 to. I'm thinking Sennheiser, I'm thinking Bose, I'm thinking this deserves to be put into some gauntlet, but you tell me down in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay happy, stay peaceful, stay colorful. Namaste.